Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's video, where we are going to talk about the brand new Endor Speeder Bike Pursuit Raid. And you might be asking, well, how good is it? Not as good as that hairy Ewok booty, baby! Oh, let's just say this is gonna be a bit of a doozy. I had some post-stream clarity. Yes, that's a thing. And I really don't like this raid. We're going to talk about the great, good, bad, and frankly, ugly things that this raid has to offer. Before I get into my opinion on the raid and suggestions on how to improve this monstrosity, I know I'm going to get the question, what should I be doing if you're more of that early mid-game guild type of thing? Let me show you what I think our guild and my free-to-play account's going to do. In the Crate Dragon Raid Hunt, the game plan was to get a nice steady inflow of Relic 8 stuff, Relic 9 stuff. You really wanted your guild to try to achieve that 22.5 million. It gets you, well, it used to get you a nice decent income of the Mark III currency. It would give you 750 per attempt. Now with the Speeder Bike Pursuit raid, you want to try to make sure your guild can hit the 36 million. Now keep in mind, this raid should only be running once a week, and as you can see, 750 times 2 will get you 1,500 currency. So you want your guild to try to strive for that, and if you want to know the math, it's not all that bad. So assuming you have a guild of 50, you need to get the 36 million, divide that by 50 people, so really each person needs to get 720,000 score per person. And I don't think that's going to be too impossible to hit, especially with 8 attempts, and you're going to, I think most people are going to auto this thing. So with that said, let's talk about the great, good, bad, and ugly. And I first want to apologize for the gameplay. I know it makes some people motion sickness, nauseous. Some people were telling me when they were playing it, they would just hit it on auto, they would cover up the screen and come back when it was done. It's really bad. We're going to talk more about that. And even when I tried adjusting the speed from 4, 2, 1, whatever the speed adjusters are, it made no difference on the speed of the background, the animations. We'll talk more about that. So point being is, I can't really adjust it. I'm not speeding up. This is just the natural raw footage of it. So I'm going to start off on a positive note, to get us started. I want to talk about the great part of this new Speeder Bike Pursuit. Number one, I think this is a nice way of spinning it. Yes, it's not like the old raids where you could just use anything, like the old AAT, the Challenge Rancor, the list goes on. Opposite of shares kind of a common detriment with Crate Dragon Hunt, where there was only specific teams you could use. But the good thing is, I think of the Speeder Bike Pursuit over the Crate Dragon Raid, I think more people will have the requirements here. It's Rebels, Ewoks, and Imperial Troopers. So right from the get-go, I think hitting that minimum score that I recommended for a lot of guilds, I don't think that's going to be hard, especially on auto. Although I am going to nick them a little bit here. For whatever reason, they didn't add like things like Palpatine, Darth Vader. They gave a really weak excuse. I kind of read this more as an excuse of laziness. When asked this question in their Q&A, they just said certain models didn't work, translated to being on a speeder bike. And you're telling me this translated well. They were using the excuse of robes and capes. I think at the end of it was just laziness. They just wanted to copy and paste things in. They reused the same models pretty much for everything, even though it didn't even translate well between like C-3PO to a human type of figure and the damn Ewoks. So I just kind of read this as a lazy excuse. I'm not going to overly hit him for it, but it would have been nice if at least Vader and Palpatine could have been used here. I'm going to throw this in the great category. I think it's nice that they're trying something new. Sometimes when you try something new, you're going to learn from the success of it and you're going to learn from the failures of it. I think there's more failures than successes with this particular raid, but sometimes you got to work outside the box, get outside the comfort zone, and see what happens. So I can appreciate that. But with that said, it feels like they didn't really show this to enough people to be like, hey, is this a good idea? It feels like some dude just really wanted to do it, didn't care about anyone else's opinion, and just kind of ran with it. And the other thing that I think is great is the frequency. Now, the Crate Dragon Hunt, I was not overwhelming, but I was mostly positive about it. Of course, there were some criticisms that were valid, I think, for the raid, but overall, I enjoyed it. But one of my biggest things I didn't enjoy, I felt like it was a little too frequent, and I enjoyed doing it. I played 90% of my raids for the Crate Dragon Hunt on manual. Rarely would I ever auto unless I was like pressed for time. So I do think it's a good step in the right direction for this type of a raid, especially the Speeder Bike Pursuit. Goodness, I would not want to do this twice a week. That they brought it down to a one about once a week frequency. So let's talk about the good part. I think there's another little silver lining here, and this might make you love the speeder bike pursuit over the crate dragon hunt because of the fact that the crate dragon hunt was pretty frequent, and you really needed to manually play it, or else you would get a vastly lower score on auto. This raid, I hate to say it, the initial reaction for most people, the memes were banger. The initial reaction was hit auto for a lot of people, and the scores turned out pretty good. I think most people are going to do that. I just really think if I was a game designer, the last thing I want for a big new game mode is for people's initial reaction to be, I'm just going to hit auto, and they're getting a grand majority of the work done on auto. A game designer's worst nightmare, but what am I to say? And if it's only going to be once a week, and I think you're able to, on auto, it feels like you're going to get 70 to 80% of your possible total score. So it's a time saver, but do you really want to create a big brand new event where the initial gut reaction from the community is to hit auto and it does most of the work? It depends how you want to spin it. If you don't want to do it, then yeah, it's a good thing, but if you actually want to engage in this mini Star Wars story, you kind of want to play it, you know? And I'm not even going to complain about the difficulty. I'm not even going to complain about the score, because I know once we get the mods dialed in and we know to put Lando with an Ewok with the Trooper or something, the scores are going to get there. I have no doubt about it. But the fact that I got 9.5 on auto, and I did some calculations, and it seems like I'll probably hit maybe somewhere around 13.6, maybe 15.5. No way will I get 19.4, because you're going to need pretty much 8 relegate teams. I'm not going to go that hard on it. But the fact that I almost hit this threshold right here on full auto, and maybe I can get 1, maybe 2 more thresholds right there, that's, you know, a grand majority of the work just on auto. And I think people might like that as a time-saving thing, because I don't think people are going to want to engage with this on the same in-depth level as the crate dragon hunt. Beyond that, those are really the only good things that I'm seeing with this raid. So this is where, again, I'm not trying to purposely be negative. I don't like it. I'm not going to pretend I like it. I think it has a lot of flaws with this, and I want this game to succeed. It's not like I want this game to fail. Let's talk about the bad. I'm kind of joking with this first part here, but hot dang. Them Ewok booties don't need to be as juicy as they look. This was an intentional design choice to make us stare at those rotund, hairy booty, hairy cheek cracks. I went back and rewatched the parts of Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks and the speeder bikes. They were mostly sitting down like a normal being. By no means did it look like elegant swans trying to bust a wheelie on a motorcycle while showing the goods. I'm not gonna harp too much on this, but come on, like they were complaining about Darth Vader and Palpatine being modeled here, but they were okay with this. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. We have more serious things that I think we have to address. This is going to be a common theme with even the crate dragon hunt that I didn't like. The fact that we're having our second raid with this new era of raiding, and there's no exclusive like character or hero associated with it. I feel like, especially this raid, as we're going to talk about, I feel like they've been moving farther and farther away from what made the raids fun in Galaxy of Heroes. We're going to talk about a variety of things like building up the characters that work in a variety of game modes. You can kind of theory craft how those abilities work with the raids. But really, at the end of the day, the thing that got people excited was chasing after a character. The first person to get Han Solo, that was a big deal in the game. Even the developers made a forum post basically celebrating, hey, this is the first person of Han Solo. I was beyond excited when I got my hands on the AAT raid and General Kenobi was the reward. Like, I was like, I have to work super hard. I want to get this character as fast as possible. I don't feel that urgency with the crate dragon hunt and this. Like, yeah, you know, you'll get the Relic 8s and Relic 9, which of course is nice, but we play this game not to crunch numbers, not to make sure we're hitting certain stats and managing the stacks on the speeder bikes. We're playing this game because we want to collect these characters that we have an affinity for and to use them in our journey throughout the other game modes. I think that's one of the biggest things that made the raids exciting, and they could have easily done a character for the crate dragon hunt, a new Mando, Cobb Vanth, the speeder bike pursuit. They could have maybe, I don't know, I'm just throwing out some stupid ideas out there. Heck, it could have been the Shadow Scout Trooper, or, you know, throw a poncho on Han and make a new Han Solo. There's a variety of things they could do. The point being is I really feel like they're moving too far away from the core of what made their raid special. And that's a big one for me. And I think this is something they could just do afterwards to say, hey, we're adding a character. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's one of the core concepts they need to bring back. Another thing that's bad, this is definitely different from the other raids, and the fact that all the other raids, they were cool because you're fighting these epic large-scale bosses, Grievous and his army, the AATs, Treya, Nihilus, a Rancor, a Crate freaking Dragon. Here, all it is you got a couple of dudes on a speeder bike, and all you're doing, you're just trying to manage the stacks on top of your speeder bikes and their speeder bikes. It's definitely not a raid of epic proportions by any means. My suggestion that I threw out there a lot, if they were definitely going for a copy and pasting, because this was definitely a bit of a copy and paste from the Endor or Galactic Legend Leia unlock, if they just wanted to copy and paste things, I think people probably would have much rather had like an ATST. They already have it in several areas of the game. I think people would have much rather had that. You wouldn't have the blurry, ugly background that's constantly in motion, the weird speeder bike animations jolting around. It would have been just kind of like our traditional raid experience. I think more people would have liked to seen that in a raid format. Another bad thing that I'm not too happy about is the Omicron on Scout Trooper. Now, this is going to kind of go to a larger issue. The limited time raid experience. This is an Omicron that has a definitive deadline. The other problem is when I read the Omicron, it doesn't sound exciting. It's just like one little line, and I'm sure it's going to make a bit difference in a score. And we're going to show some, varieties of scores at the very end if you want to see how other people are handling the raid. My biggest issue is they should not be asking for a full Omicron cost of 20, because all the other Omicrons, territory battles, territory wars, Grand Arena, those game modes are basically forever game modes. The fact that they're charging 20 for something where they're claiming every 8 months or so, 8, 9 months, whatever the case may be, 8, 9, 10 months, they're going to have a new raid. So if we take 8 months, let's say 4 times a month, because the raid's going to be about once a week. So at best, with the Scout Trooper Omicron, if I got it right now, I get to use it maybe 32 times, and that's it. Nah, I don't know about that. I got 2 solutions. I'll bring up one right now, one later. I think one of the easiest solutions is just make this a 10 Omicron at most. Still, yeah, it's a limited time use, but this should not be 20. And they had, for example, Bausch Lee, it cost 10 for a limited time. They should do it here. They should. It's not even like a fun Omicron. All it does is it just helps you manage your virtual stacks more, which in turn will get you more scores. And then the last thing I have for the bad category, before we get the ugly, don't worry, we're not done with this yet. The speeds and animations, they can't be adjusted. During stream, people are like, can you lower the speed, because this is kind of nauseating to watch. I wasn't really getting sick watching it, but I could totally see someone just being like a bystander watching. I could see it giving someone a headache. I don't know how this is possible, because I think the Leia event, you were able to adjust the speeds. And this kind of just feels like they were lazy. They cut a lot of steps out of this process, developing this raid. Changing the modifier on the speed animations made absolutely no difference. The animations, the characters were the same. The background was the same. It just felt like a lazy, massive oversight. Hopefully they fix it. I think that's an easy thing to fix, but it just kind of goes to show, I don't think this was really well thought out. Really, the details were not paid attention to. Why don't we talk about the ugly? Oh man. And I guess we'll just transition from the animations and speeds. I think this is a very ugly looking raid in terms of visual quality. This really does look like, I'll be generous, a PS2 thing at best. I don't mean to be mean, but if, let's say, for example, someone in high school said, hey, look at this thing I made on the side, I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty cool. But when you look at a game that's almost $2 billion and this is the best you could do, I think it's a bit disappointing. It really is disappointing. The background looks horrible. The speeder bikes just doing this doesn't look really fun. The animations of the abilities are so lame. I mean, most of them are just, you do something and just stacks disappear on a speeder bike, or just a random branch just kind of comes out of nowhere. This has to be some of the lowest quality fidelity I think I've seen from this game, and they can do some good things. Like the Crate Dragon Hunt was pretty cool, I think. But ultimately, this point, I had to, we kicked this point down the road until we got to this. In general, I find this raid to be uninteresting, boring, and again, the reaction from most people was to hit auto, and the surprise came that you're gonna probably achieve 70 to 80% of your possible score with whatever you have. You throw it in there, and you're getting stuff done. Again, take it as a positive or negative, but I think the negative part is, I kind of want to engage in this. I don't just want to hit auto on a new raid. I kind of want to play it. And really, all this is, at the end of the day, it just seems like you just got to make sure your stats are in a certain range that makes sure you're removing certain stacks that are hovering above a speeder bike, because the overall concept, in case it's not clear, is that there are 4 different stacks on the speeder bikes, and when you deplete one of them, the speeder bike gets destroyed. And in order to maximize how many stacks you remove, you got to make sure your mods are within a very specific range. That's not why we play this game. Just because they say, hey, everything you know about Galaxy Heroes, throw it out the window, that doesn't necessarily mean that's that's a good thing. They made it seem like it's a good thing. It's a completely different thing, and it could be, but not in this way. We play the game for a variety of reasons. Number one, above all, it's Star Wars. I don't think this game would have the same amount of success if it wasn't Star Wars. But number two, we want to play with these characters, use their movesets that generally reflect that character's personality, skill sets that are reflected inside the movies, the TV shows, the books. And we want to utilize them up against the variety of challenges that lay throughout the game. This does everything against that. Yes, of course, modding is important, but we usually mod in a very general sense. Get speed within a certain range, and that's kind of the more important thing. Or maybe, health. We got to get health in a certain range. But the finite details you got to strive for on the most absurd things. Get your accuracy within a specific range. Get your critical avoidance within this range, and you can remove 2 more stacks of sideswipe or whatever it is. Absolutely stupid stats that make no impact. It really just feels like they saw there was an insufficiency of certain mods in the game. They're like, hey, this would be a great time to motivate people to farm really dumb mods just for this raid. That, by the way, will be gone in about 8 months. And there's a lot of preliminary theory craft. Again, there's really nothing solidified yet. And again, I'm sure we're going to have the strategy solidified. But a lot of the preliminary theories is that accuracy is going to play such an important role. Like, come on. Who sat there and thought, what would be fun if we made sure they can get accuracy to a certain range on their characters, which the pain in the butt to remod constantly for possibly 36 more raids, just so it can remove a couple of imaginary stacks on a thing in front of them. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. I don't want to talk too much more about this because I think it's pretty clear. I don't think it's exciting to see a kit like Leia or Jedi Luke be converted into remove 3 stacks of sideswipe. Actually, before I wrap this up, I want to just show some scores that are going around. Now, unfortunately, these are just screenshots circulating around, so I can't really say who got what. To give credit to whomever, it's just, when you just send a screenshot on the internet without a name on it, you don't know who it is. Again, I'm not really complaining about the difficulty or the scoring. Again, I'm certain that once we know what accuracy to hit on a specific character, it's going to be fine. But a lot of these scores, people just say, yeah, I hit 2.7 just putting it on auto. It's kind of one of those things where a lot of these high scores are without having to use even a fraction of your brain power. Very clear, Leia's going to be the best thing out there. And most of even my own runs are pretty similar to this, where just putting it auto, you're going to get somewhere between 1 to 2 million on auto if you're doing the higher tiers. Again, I just don't know if, I don't know. Ewoks get certain nice scores. Iden Versio, I'm sure, again, the Scout Trooper Omicron will help out the scores a little bit. So again, I am not concerned about people being able to hit their desired thresholds for the crates to get their rewards. So with that said, I do want to wrap up on my suggestions. How can we make it better? I don't suspect they're going to do anything drastic. That's just, I kind of know how the studio operates. They're just like, if it's bad, it's bad. Yeah, it is what it is, But here's my number one recommendation. I think doing a raid rotation, raid seasons would be great for one of several reasons. Number one, it respects the investment people put in the previous raids. The Crate Dragon Hunt, why does it need to be completely replaced? I mean, obviously, it's not a negative view to have. It's just the motivation in these type of games. They want you to focus on gearing up the next thing as fast as possible to maximize this raid and then making it obsolete. Do a new raid. Now you got to focus on these things right away. So that's the reason why they do it. But why can't we have, we have Grand Arena seasons go from 3v3 to 5v5, 2 mostly vastly different modes in terms of strategies and team building, maybe not to the degree of the raids, but why can't we have, either 1 week or 1 month we're doing Crate Dragon Hunt, next month speeder bike pursuit. So having a rotation, and this kind of solves a few things. One, you don't feel bad for putting the Scout Trooper Omicron on, the Bausch Leia Omicron on. Number two, it keeps things fresh. Having, doing the speeder bike for the next month does not sound fun to me. And I think the other thing is too, if it gives you variety in a way where everything will have a use. So let's say, you want to gear up Tuskens. The good thing about Tuskens, let's say the Crate Dragon Hunt is every other week or every other month. So it makes it feel like everything in your roster maintains value, where now I kind of feel like Relic 7 Tuskens, I didn't need my Tuskens at Relic 7. I only needed them maybe at Relic 5 at most. So let's maybe just get a rotation going. Other games do this. I've always brought to Raid Shadow Legends, every day they had a different raid open up that you would go and get specific rewards for. I think there's an opportunity to do something like that here. But again, I know why they won't do it. They want to give you a limited time window, feeling the pressure of trying to get out of this new raid, get the Mark III currency, and then basically devalue all that investment and move on to the new one. They need to put something in to get people excited. And again, I'm not specifically knocking on Speeder Bike Pursuit. Same thing with Crate Dragon Hunt. Yes, Mark III currency is important. No one's debating that. We really need to get back to raid exclusive rewards. And I'm not talking really even about like progression things. I think just we need a new character tied at these raids. That is the most exciting part of it all. It makes it exciting to play. My next suggestion is probably for future raids. The Speeder Bike Pursuit really is a rock, paper, scissors thing in disguise that we saw inside of the Supreme Kyle Ren and Ray event. We're kind of 2 for 2 in a model that I feel like doesn't work well in the game. I mean, you know, maybe they need a third strike before they change their mind. I really think they should stay away from these rock, paper, scissor type events. That's not why we play this game. Lower the Scout Trooper Omicron cost. I don't want to give 20 Omicrons for it. I don't think they're going to change it. It shouldn't be 20. It shouldn't be 20. Those that leave that for Territorials, Territory Wars, and Grand Arena. And of course, we need to at least, at the very minimum, this has to be done. Let us adjust the animation speeds at the minimum. I mean, I'm sure some people wish they could just disable the background moving. The moving background's not bad, but it's just not a pleasing looking background. Maybe they just have the speeder bike stand in place and then they just delete the stacks off each other. It's just such a dumb concept of a raid. Anyways, that's kind of where I am with this raid here. I don't think any of my concerns are difficulty, the scoring. At the end of the day, it just felt very lazy. It felt underdeveloped. It felt like it was unchecked and boring, uninteresting. I think I already said those words several times. Moving away from the core concepts farther and farther and farther for what made the raid so much fun to begin with. It was visually pleasing, exciting to fight these epic bosses, using the character abilities that we purposely upgrade for other game modes and try to figure out how to make them work in a specific game mode with the kits they already have, and you get something really cool at the very end as a reward. They sometimes act like they got to make this complicated. I think we're pretty simple when it comes to the overall raid formula for this type of game. But anyways, I mean, all this is pretty much null and void. If you just want to hit auto, you're going to get 70 to 80% of your possible total score without remodding. Thank y'all for coming by today. Let me know your thoughts down below. And I just want to say, you know, if you like this raid a lot, I'm happy for you. I really am happy for you. I'm just expressing my opinion. I played all of the raids in Galaxy Heroes. Day one, I was pretty much positive on pretty much all of them. This raid, I am not positive at all. I just don't like it. But if you enjoy it, more power to you, my friend. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And always remember, until we meet again, how it's great to be in the Empire today. The sun never sets. We dominate.